Forbes India presents AWS The Mavericks in association with IBEF Ventures.
Hello and welcome to Forbes India presents AWS The Mavericks CTO Conversation. My name is Manu Balachandran, and joining me this afternoon are some of the top minds in the world of business to discuss the challenges of revolutionizing e-commerce in India. We have Mr. Ramni Khurana, co-founder, Lenskart; Mr. Gurukirti Gurunathan, co-founder, Carrot Lane; Mr. Amit Chowdhury, the CTO of Ecom Express; Mr. Mahesh Vandichalil, CTO, Book My Show; and Mr. Satinder Singh, Head Solution Architects, DNB, AWS. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me this afternoon. It's been a life-altering few years for many of us personally and for the businesses that you lead. COVID-19 has brought about a disruption many of us were personally and really not prepared for. While a revolution was already underway in India's e-commerce sector with infrastructure improvement, cheap data, smartphone penetration, increased awareness, and technologically equipped logistics platform, it's safe to say that COVID-19 certainly hastened the process. India's e-commerce market is expected to reach $350 billion by 2030, while the Indian online grocery market is expected to reach $18.2 billion in 2024. But fast-paced growth comes with its own set of challenges. Addressing supply shocks, delays, and other interruptions, all while immediately notifying customers of these sudden changes, have become an integral part of the e-commerce system, for instance. Then there's the ever-increased role of personalization to improve the customer experience. All that means the growth of e-commerce business cannot take place without digital solutions such as cloud computing, which helps scale and keep the focus on customer centricity by delivering a superior experience. On that note, let me bring in our panelists for their opening thoughts on how the past year, especially with COVID, have played out for the businesses that they lead and the kind of changes that they saw and how they had to adopt as a result. Let's start with Mr. Ramnik and then move on to the others.
Hey, hi. So I think last couple of years have been very interesting and very uncertain for everyone across this panel and across the country and the world. With the lockdowns going on and off, with the pin codes being on and off, it was a very interesting time which taught us a lot about being agile. Since we serve customers across multiple channels at store, online, and at their home, we saw massive swings in customer demand and the way they were experiencing our product. We sometimes saw stores gaining traction overnight. At other times, we saw increase in home eye visits. So that is what we learned through the pandemic, that there was a huge period of lot of uncertainty. And what was interesting is that whoever was able to address it with a lot of agility is someone that gained a lot during this period. So I think that was the biggest learning that we got out of this period. Just to share as an anecdote, when we were at the peak of the lockdown in March-April period, a lot of services like even Amazon were shut off, but we being essentials were operating. But because very big services were also shut off, there was a confusion in the mind of the customers that whether we are on or not. So to put the word out there, we thought we will launch a TV campaign. But the problem was that across the country, there was no shoots going on, nothing was going on. So at that time, what we did is we asked our customers over WhatsApp to share feedback. And to our surprise, people shared a lot of interesting videos taken with the background of their home, where they were thankful about the classes they were receiving, which helped them go through all day Zoom sessions, be it for office or for studies, etc. And what we decided is we decided to stitch those videos together and launch a national TV campaign with that, which allowed us to quickly put the word out there and really helped us gain a lot of new customers. So I think agility was the key theme that we learned during this period.
Guru, is that similar learnings for you? Was it all about agility at that point of time?
Absolutely, I 100% agree with Ramnik also. For us, like anybody else, right, went through a period of shock and then acceptance and then trying to make up what we can at that point in time. So I see COVID in multiple dimensions, actually organization perspective, customer perspective, as well as employees perspective, right? If you think about organization perspective, thankfully we were digitally native. We were in cloud, or we started off online. Actually, we were born as a digital company. So we didn't have to scramble to put together a website or move the infra and so on. So the operations of the site or the apps were continuing to function, but unfortunately, logistics wasn't available. So we continue to take orders. But from the business perspective, we go through multiple important festivals and events. That's the nature of the jewelry business, heavily concentrated across Akshay Tritiya or Dhanteras, or there could be other micro events like Valentine's or Mother's Day and so on. The first COVID wave, when it struck, it was actually right across Akshay Tritiya, and we were not able to come out of it for the last 2 years. This is the first year we actually celebrated Akshay Tritiya from a business perspective. So we were taking orders from the business, but at least consumers were waiting for when the dispatches would happen, and the day when it opened up, we were all very happy to get this. And like what Ramnik was saying, there were other smaller occasions that we thought of instilling customers to also start celebrating while they were at home. It is never a bad time to even gift when you are still working from home, or when your family is around. From a customer perspective, a lot of gifting occasions got missed out, and that is very important. And when the lockdown was lifted, there was a lot of people coming onto the showroom being very comfortable, and all this because our jewelry is being a touch and feel product, and we heavily operate on the retail segment. We want people to walk into our store comfortably, or our try at home agents walking into the customer's home comfortably. All of that was a big learning experience. And for our employees, it is a big time of it's a testing time. We were very resilient, and we were all putting together, and we even lost one or two people. And so it brought in a lot of camaraderie in the organization, as well as we learned a lot as human beings as well, going through this phase.
Definitely some tough times. Amit, I Ecommerce was logistics players were the heart of, even during a lockdown, I don't think you could sort of sit at home. How was that period, shaped up Ecom Express for you?
Again, there are two phases that ecom went through. The first phase was largely, as everybody talked about, it was mostly everything was disrupted. People had to go back and figure out, which areas, which lanes were active. How do we move, the shipments through the breadth of the value chain? What areas were allowed the trucks would go through? How the shipments could be then handled and dropped off, and then in the last mile problems as well. Every zip code, it was so fluid that every zip code was going to be looked at from a very, very different perspective. But we learned a lot. We learned a lot through that, and which has actually helped us in the past couple of years to understand and kind of scale our businesses. A lot of interesting nuances came through in the same time because of the forcing function. The D2C business starts to take off. So the way the mix of the entire business was prior to COVID and post COVID, the business model has leaned a lot towards how the D2C businesses have come on board. And largely with the help of third party logistics like us, have been able to travel that journey at a very, very fast pace. So if you look at the growth that Misho has had, look at the growth that Nike has had, Lenskart, Geo, a lot of these things have actually, from a volume perspective, replaced the likes of the Flipkart and the Amazon, delivery. So I think that's a huge change that we have seen from a business perspective. Of course, it has grown, in multiples. Everybody is getting ready to adopt, this kind of a model. Uh, and with the ONDC coming in, I'm sure there's a lot more disruption in play in the future. But yeah, I would say that the pre-COVID and post-COVID phases from a business perspective as well has been disrupted forever.
Very, very interesting point on D2C business. But we'll speak about that in just a bit. Let me bring in Mahesh. Mahesh, Book My Show, during COVID, I think one of the worst sort of hit as a result of that. How were those 2 years for you?
As a founder says, we were the first one to hit and we were the last one to come back, right? During the pandemic and the post-pandemic. For me also, I joined at the peak of pandemic in September 2020. It was, Book My Show is known as number one online entertainment booking platform, selling the highest number of tickets in India. And at the same time, I joined when there was zero tickets being sold, right? And that was kind of ironic. Now, it's a period where, we kind of like utilize that pandemic situation to take the out of home entertainment to the entertainment home, or in terms of like a lot of online streaming. We released our OTT platform Stream, and then we also taken our live entertainment to the next level. So that is from the business perspective. Then we also started looking at how we have been doing the business last 13 years, right? We looked at our resources wise, we looked at our infrastructure wise, we looked at across the board and see, what else actually we can do better. So from the resourcing perspective, for example, technology team strength was brought down to 50%. We are operating at 50% of pre-pandemic technology team. Our infrastructure cost drastically came down because we were able to migrate our on-prem data center to cloud data center. Sorry, the AWS cloud. So from that perspective, it made us completely agile in terms of going to market with much more better features, much more faster. The time to market has reduced drastically. Our innovation mindset has changed drastically, because when you are in a capex model where it will prevent you from thinking out of the box or in an innovative mindset, because it's all about like I need to bring in more infrastructure, versus when you're in an scalable elastic platform like cloud, it absolutely changes your mindset. So Book My Show overall, including the innovation in the business side as well as the infrastructure side, we can say that every time, Book My Show, this was not the first time they have been, or we have been down. Just like a phoenix bird, we come up every time. When we are hitting the rock bottom, we come back like strong. In April, we hit the historical, count of 26 million tickets a month, with the highest ever recorded in a single day of 2.16 million tickets a day. So definitely Book My Show is back. Extremely proud to be part of this journey as well. Last 2 years, it has been fantastic.
Interesting. Satyendra, I think AWS obviously gets credit for that, but generally from an industry perspective, what sort of changes did you see during that period across the business world?
Yeah, I think what we started to see was that India is in probably the perfect storm of digitization, with businesses of all sizes now realizing the value of technology more than what they ever did. And I think as I talk to customers, especially Indian business, there is a realization that businesses that were thinking deeply about technology and cloud managed the crisis much better, or are emerging from the crisis much stronger. There is, in fact, an ASCOM report which talks about the next decade and tech intensity. And it says that post-COVID, the tech intensity, which is the total amount of spend companies are going to do on technology, is increasing from 2% of their overall revenue to 5%. Now, that's a massive shift. And if you just take a step back and hear all the panelists, you'll see two conflicting things, almost contradictory. On one hand, Mahesh talked about Book My Show, businesses almost down. Guru talked about Carrot Lane getting impacted, and their businesses were virtually shut. And on the other hand, we heard Amit talking about how the business scaled. In fact, we had another customer, which is Big Basket. Suddenly, the lockdown meant more workload from them. They were doing almost like, I think, 250,000 orders per day in 2019, and that has risen almost to 400,000 by mid of 2020. And you realize whether your businesses are struggling to find the customers, or you're dealing with spikes. Cloud is one of the foundational platforms that enabled these customers to scale through this journey and emerge more stronger.
Interesting. And I think we'll speak about that, about cloud and the impact that it's had on companies over the past 2 years. But I want to ask this question to Ramni, Guru, maybe Mahesh also. Over the past 2 years, how do you think customer behavior and expectations have really changed post the pandemic? Ramni, maybe you can sort of take us through that first.
Sure. So there are two important shifts in customer behavior over the last 2 years. Firstly, the expectation of change has become far more. So expectations we have on the platforms that we are visiting on a daily basis, be it YouTube, be it Forbes, be it any of the content providers as an example, or be it any services that we are trying, what we are seeing is that there is a much faster pace of innovation and rollouts in these services. And that has overall taken up our expectations on what we expect to see whenever we are visiting an application over and over again, or when we are interacting with the business. So the pace of change has increased significantly over the last 2 years in response to the service over consumption or a high consumption rate of these services, or them becoming an important part of our lives. So that is the first change that we have noticed. Second change that we have noticed is that in lot of cases there were all these tools, right? Outside of Lenskart, tools like Hangout was there for video conferencing, calendars, etc. A lot of things were already available, but they were underutilized. And the adoption of them was driven in droves during this period. And this is what we saw within Lenskart also, where we had always had the ability for you to try glasses on your face, sitting at your home using our augmented reality feature. We had always had the option for you to book your appointment at a nearby eye test center before visiting the Lenskart store. So all those things which we had already built in, the adoption had gone through the roof for those features. So faster pace as well as high adoption of things which were already conceived by a lot of product managers over the years. There are two big changes that we see during these 2 years.
Right. Let me bring in Guru here, but just before that, for our audience who've joined us, please do send in your questions. We'll take them towards the last 15 minutes of the conversation. Guru, you spoke earlier about how the jewelry business is sort of touch and feel, and how that's important. So from your point of view, do you see some sort of significant changes in the customer behavior?
Yeah, definitely. One is this behavior of the ability to browse from home or even do group purchases, interact with your family remotely, and being able to interact with a brand from the comfort of your home has actually stayed on. That has become a habit now. And so this adoption would have taken a long time, because we currently have a feature called CL Live, where the customers will be able to interact with our live agents, and they will be able to show the jewelry, wearing it and showing the size, in order to just mimic a small shopping behavior at the retail showroom. So that has started getting good adoption. So permanently, certain habits have come to forefront for the customers, which is a welcome sign for our business. Because the touch and feel always needs a retail presence across India in largest markets and so on. So this helps the industry itself to go on an inventory less model and being able to open smaller showrooms and still be able to make a profitable business. Number two is, in the age of the big basket and Zeptos and Swiggies, etc., doing very fast deliveries, that has become a norm for expectation from the jewelry also now. So people wanted to get jewelry in under 4 hours, from the point of placing an order, or 4 to 8 hours. And we are also experimenting. We're able to do it satisfactorily for certain pin codes. And so this is an evolution that we see, that instant gratification, what the ability or the habit of placing an order and not waiting longer is something which has caught on to the customers. So, and that is across the industry. So jewelry is no exception to that also. So these two behaviors, I think, will stay, and this will continue to challenge us, and also the value chain, people who are downstream us also to do better and do faster.
Right. I'll bring Amit to sort of give us a view about how they're sort of adopting to these changes of quick delivery. But Mahesh, your thoughts on how the customer preferences have changed post pandemic?
Absolutely. I think how we do the shopping, where do we do the shopping, and when do we do shopping, all those behaviors drastically changed last 2 years. I mean, just on a funny note, I don't actually get up in the morning with my, alarm. It's basically with the big basket guy come and actually do the, alarm in my gate notification. So that's the drastic difference in our lifestyle as well. It has become completely online. But the biggest change I believe from a customer perspective is our patience towards low quality has absolutely reduced or gone, right? I mean, everyone expects extreme highest quality of service, whatever they use. Otherwise, there are so many choices out there. Going to the competitor or going to the second option is absolutely easier now, right? So the biggest challenge for us is capturing on those behavior of the customer and the expectations, and how do we make sure that we provide the highest quality of service to the customers without even any kind of compromise. And this is what exactly I observed. When the traffic came back, how was the drastic difference in customers' expectation, and how was there less tolerance on the quality? The quality issues. I can deep dive in, but I think biggest thing is their patience level is what I observed as the biggest change.
So that's impatience after to get results much faster.
Yes.
Guru sort of spoke about this, and I think that's increasingly happening now, where you need things delivered much faster. So how are you sort of dealing with this? So much of influx of quick delivery happening around you. What is that change? How are you dealing with that change around you?
So the biggest change that we're observing, quick delivery is one part which Blinkit and everyone else is making famous. But more than that, what we are seeing is the democratization of online, ordering. So if you think about how urban centers were more, at the epicenter of all of the online ordering, and at a very different wave, 75% of the orders coming in from tier one cities, that whole dynamics has changed quite a bit. If you look at what happened during the COVID and beyond that, your tier two, tier three, and tier four are getting more involved in this entire value chain. So the number of orders that we are receiving from different pin codes, it is very interesting to observe how the consumer behavior in those towns and cities are changing, and that is to me a bigger determinant of what we kind of achieve as a result of some of these disruptions that happen. Maybe the disruptions that are uninitiated, but they end up impacting things in a very different way, and that's exactly what we're observing. A large part of, I would say, the Indian demographic is now getting comfortable to place an order online, which wouldn't be the case before that. Just like what we saw with people using wallet and then eventually UPI to do these transactions at all nook and corners of the country. Similarly, we are seeing the same wave kind of sweep across the entire nation from a standpoint of how people are changing their behavior in terms of ordering things. A huge change, I would say.
Is last mile delivery still a sort of a point of concern for logistics players in that sense?
It is and it is not. We have learned, there's been a lot of technological solves around that part, how the routes need to be optimized, how these kind of things have to be implemented to make sure that we are able to provide the best, list of areas to be covered by each field executive, and how quickly and how much they can cover during a day. I think more than that, what and drones are far out. We are not anywhere near the fact that the drones will be our last mile help. So till that day comes, we still have to rely on people, and especially in remote areas where the density may be different, where the deliveries have to made for farther long distances as compared to your higher dense pockets in the urban quarters. We will have to still continue to build those infrastructure, make sure that we are coming up with the right size of delivery centers at each and every place. We already cover almost all of India with 27,000 pin codes, and we continue to expand that to make sure that we are able to serve each and every part of the country. But yeah, we are getting better in optimizing the entire value chain, not only the last mile, but also the way we do the pickups, the way we figure out in the address space, which is a huge problem even today in India. How clean the addresses are and how we are able to correct the addresses and so forth, plus the fraud cases, and how are we able to identify a lot of these leakages into the system and make sure the network is not overwhelmed with these invalid, I would say, shipments, and we are able to take the valid shipment through to the end destination at a very very high quality SLA. So I think that's the focus, and that's what we have been working for in order to build a platform at scale to make sure that we're able to achieve that.
Right.
Manu, I just wanted to come in and
Please, sir.
sorry, I may be
Yes.
interrupting the flow, but I think on the dimension of the customer patience that Mahesh brought out, I think there is element of faster deliveries, element of choice, but there is another key element of personalization. As our world has become fast-paced, customers have naturally become impatient. Their time is a valuable asset, and that means that they expect and reward retailers that provide a very streamlined and a personalized buying experience. And this value of personalization is is kind of readily apparent and intuitive to many of us. But I think to deliver on promise of personalization at a next level, there is a need to take a look at a holistic and a structured view across data management, experience, granularity, use cases, omni-channel capabilities. And I think that's where machine learning plays a very important role. And we've seen, in fact, there is a McKinsey report which says that if we are able to do a good job, I'm using this word little loosely, but personalized recommendations and triggered communication can lead to a 5 to 15% increase in revenue and almost 10 to 30% increase in marketing spend efficiency as well. And that directly relates to the point around customer becoming impatient because they need personalization.
That's a fascinating point. So let me bring in then Ramnik and Guru here. How are you sort of to what Satinder said, in terms of personalization? How are you sort of going about it, and what are the challenges that you face there?
Yeah, personalization is a very interesting topic for us because we operate in a category where we are bringing a depth which had not existed in this category, not just in India but across the world. So at Lenskart, one can go right now and order and choose from more than thousands of glasses, but that brings in a problem by itself because how do you figure out that what is the right glass set of glasses for me? Uh, and that too in a category where people are not very used to seeing this much selection, so the intuitive selection criteria are also not very clear for people. So that makes it a very interesting use case to address via personalization. How we tackle it is a little bit different, and it is a little bit interesting than what other people are able to do. uh, Other than your regular with order history, your browsing pattern, etc., which are all the inputs that we take in our recommendation algorithm. On top of it, what we also have is data of a lot of consumers who come to our app and take a picture to try on glasses virtually. So what we do is we use computer vision to convert those pictures into a structured data set that we can then play with in an anonymized fashion, and also correlate what glasses work with what facial features type. That builds a very powerful recommendation engine from our side, which not only takes into account your previous preferences but also takes into account uh, what goes well with people with similar facial features. So that is what we do at Lenskart right now.
But do you agree that it sort of help improve sales,
Yeah,
reduce
absolutely.
margins?
In our case, it whenever we deploy that and in the workflows where we deploy this ad, we see a uplift of at least 20%.
Oh, interesting. Guru, for you, how important is personal experience for your customers, and what strategy do you follow to sort of offer them a curated and an enhanced overall experience?
So absolutely, first of all, personalization is an essential need. In fact, if you are able to do personalization at scale, then there is nothing like it. Because that's the kind of dream of every organization and for every consumers also. Because each consumers definitely think that they are unique and they are special and deservingly so that they need to be treated that way. So on that thought, right, we see it in two ways. One is personalization from a product perspective and from a experience perspective. From an experience perspective is where we do the right nudges at the right time because we have the customer data on their important occasions in their life. We know the reasons why they buy because anniversaries or birthdays are all big gifting occasions, and these events that I spoke earlier, which is the cultural events, right, or the festivals. These are also times of gifting. So understanding their preferences helps in nudging the right product to them at the right time with the right price point, and also showcasing the availability. Being an omni-channel business helps in giving a very near to accurate delivery time for the consumers if they are ordering online, or even make them walk into a retail showroom to experience that for themselves also. And from a product side, we have smaller personalization products like the alphabet products or the engraving products and so on. In fact, we have come up with an interesting model of engraving on the fly in the airport, You will find our Carrot Lane showroom in the Bangalore airport, and anybody who is waiting for the next flight, will be able to buy a personalized jewelry and engrave the letters that they want to engrave over there. That's at one level of personalization on the product. But on the other hand, we do a lot of customization for the product, because not one size fits all. People will be able to customize on our website or the apps on the type of diamond that they want to embed in the jewelry, or the type of designs that they want to do from a plethora of designs that we have got, or even the variety of cut, color, clarity combinations of the diamond. So these customizations take time in the backend, but we have actually made the backend little more advanced to make the product reach at a much faster pace for the customers.
Right. Before I bring Satinder here to sort of talk about what Guru said about how personalization at scale is everybody's dream, and sort of what are the hindrances to that. But Mahesh, your own sort of experience, even from Book My Show's experience, how important is personalized experience for your customers, and sort of what are the strategies that you're following, to enhance their experience?
Absolutely, Manu. I think Book My Show without personalization is better. Just shut the app down. You know, it's
Oh,
all about a personalized content delivery. So we have two strong, aspects to it, which is the content driven and the collaboration behavior driven. Good news for Book My Show is that with the Book My Show being in the business for last 20 or 15 years, we have so much data, behavioral data from the customers to make the right decisions to target the customer with the right content. So, as I think Guru or Amit was saying, if you're not targeting the customer with the right data, the revenue impact is absolutely, very much impacted, because the customer's patience to see the data, whether let's say you're browsing for a movie or whether you're browsing for the live stream to watch, the OTT stream to watch, you don't have that much patience to browse through the content. Even if you have thousands of content in there, they don't have the patience to see which movie should I watch tonight, because you have so many other platforms to watch. The same way, when you're actually presenting what movies to watch when you're in out of home entertainment as well, the patience is really not there to even scroll to see the movie. So unless otherwise, you have the right personalized targeted content, right? Book My Show customers will be absolutely unhappy, and we are not there yet 100%. We are actually working very heavily on it. And as you asked the second part of the question, how are we tackling it with the terabytes and petabytes of data within our database as well? It's all about figuring out the right solutions to solve it. So luckily, Satinder, with our AWS, with the AWS personalization engine coming up, it really made our life much easier. We were using SageMaker before that. We have been writing our custom models as well, but now we are able to see the difference between SageMaker and AWS personalization to just quickly get our personalized model out there to experiment it. So definitely, Manu, Book My Show is all about personalization. It's all about tweaking our model daily, right, to see the difference it is making. And it's very easy for us to measure it, because we have this something called as a conversion of traffic. How much conversion is really transacting from the browsers.
right.
Yeah.
To our audience who've joined us, please do continue to send in the questions. We'll take them towards the end of the session. Satinder, to the point that Guru had mentioned earlier, personalization at scale remains everybody's sort of dream. What are some of the challenges that companies face, and how do you sort of tackle that?
Let's first, I'll break this question into two parts. Let's first define what a good personalization would mean, and then some of the challenges that are associated with it. So what we are learning, and specifically in construct of this discussion, which is around e-commerce, what our customers are telling is a holistic approach to personalization involves four key pillars. The first one is data management, which is not only product metadata, which is defining key attributes, form, function, color, material, price, all those things, but customer metadata. And these are the attributes that describe the customer, not only based on demographics or specific events, but maybe based on psychographics, segmentation criteria, product affinity, or customer lifetime value projections. And then intent data, which is click streams, search history, shopping cart interactions, order history, they reveal the relationship between the product and customers. The second one is experience granularity, that all customers should have the same experience. The third one is really around use cases. So user item interactions, influencing search listing, category listing. Customers would like to see a personalized ranking of the product. And this experience then starts to morph into a more personal experience wherein you're able to bring in advanced use cases like cold start recommendation, user impressions, item exploration at an individual level. The last one is Omni Channel, and I think we've talked a great deal about it, whether the person is logging from, I mean, it's email, social, mobile. The Omni Channel experience has to be consistent. Now, when we define this as a good personalization strategy, it obviously hinges on machine learning, because some of the statistical approaches uh, are good at certain point, but I think in order for them to be more comprehensive, machine learning plays a big part. Now, there are two aspects there when you look at machine learning, and I'm just getting into some of the challenges. I think the first one is, as customers start experimenting with personalization, they're thinking on, since this involves machine learning, what is the amount of investment that will be required for me? Because I want to start small, do some experiment, but do I need bunch of data scientists to be employed with me? What kind of algorithms do I need? How much it's going to cost? That's where AWS Personalized is a machine learning solution that we have developed, which is basically taking learnings from Amazon retail business, and they've been running personalization for almost 15 plus years, taking that learning and providing them in a simple to use API fashion. The customers can bring in their data, run personalized, just calling an API, and get the right mix of explore versus exploit, and fine tune those models, and see what are the kind of results that we're getting. But what it means is it dramatically reduces the cost associated with with any POCs, any prototypes one has to do, and if successful, massively scale it up. And all these learnings are coming from decades of experience of a personalization engine running for something as large as Amazon retail. This is the first one. Having said that, there would be situations wherein uh, the needs of the customers are something that a standard API is not able to fulfill. For that, we have what we are helping our customers with is through SageMaker, which is a machine learning platform, giving them through a program offering that we call as machine learning labs, bringing data scientists from AWS to help and build a custom model if there is a need. So regardless of the needs, we are providing an easy to use experience for our customers, also looking at a lower barrier to entry. You can fail fast or scale also fast if you are successful.
But are there sort of hindrances? I mean, across legacy companies and otherwise, are people readily adapting this?
Yeah, I think there are two. The first one is, and I briefly alluded to that skill set notion that look, I mean, how much it's going to take, how complex is it, do I have capabilities? The second one is, and I think Guru also alluded to that, was presence of data. And I think getting a centralized data strategy is pivotal for that matter, any machine learning use case, but more so for personalized. Because unless you know user behavior, if you don't have the data, then I think there would be a fair degree of learning involved in collecting the data. So having a robust data strategy is foundational to a personalization use case.
Right. Ramnik, so in that sense, will data-driven commerce sort of change the game of retail now, and of course e-commerce as we go forward? And how do you sort of create an effective personalized recommendation strategy?
Yeah. So data-driven commerce, I think it is one way door. It is something that is becoming more and more default across the applications that you're visiting. Uh, Very similar to what was said during this panel also, right? That bookmap show, you might as well shut off the app if it's not personalized, as Mahesh said. So We have seen it already in social media where we are all used to personalized feeds. Twitter used to be timeline based. A lot of companies used to be timeline based, and now no one is timeline based. All of them are just personalized. Similar is the case with e-commerce next. With the increase in merchandise, with the increase in the product options and selection available, it will end up becoming a default, and it is already default for most of the companies which are operating at scale.
Guru, the same question to you. So, how do you sort of create an effective personalized recommendation strategy to ensure high engagement and loyalty between the provider and the customer?
See, in our case, still a large part of our business is an assisted sale because we are operating at a price point which is much higher than most of the other e-commerce businesses, right? So the important part is collecting the data, but at the same time, the challenge is customers' willingness to share the data. And these are a lot of these customers are definitely very well averse to, very well adapted to the online purchases and averse to giving the data online. So there is a part that we have to ensure we are able to infer the data from the customer's behavior, and there is a part which we are able to get the data from the customers directly. Putting these two things together, you should be able to create a strategy that works effectively for them, because they also don't want a wrong communication coming to them, and that actually builds a negative sentiment towards a brand also. So this is something which is an ongoing journey. We try to do it through machine learning algorithms ourselves, as well as we also ensure our jewelry consultants are trained to do this as well. So for us, scale comes from a lot of these consultants who are sitting in each of our showrooms. We have about 145 showrooms across India, and these agents or the consultants who are sitting in the showroom just needs to have the right set of data so that they'll be able to pick the high intent customer and be able to personalize their communication to them, so that they are not dealing with hundreds and 200s of their customers, but actually dealing with tens and 20s, which is manageable for them to do a transaction any particular day. So it's a combination of human assistance plus the system, the data driven analytics that gives the right set of ammunition for the consultants to pitch to the right customer, and that makes the conversion happen for us.
Right. To audience, yes, please do continue to send in the questions. We've already got a few. I'll start taking them after I post this question to Amit. Amit, the massive volume of orders that are coming on a day-to-day basis seems to be sort of crazy. It's large numbers. So how are you sort of assuring delivery timelines, managing that pace of growth, and ensuring customer satisfaction at the end of it?
So what we are doing is we are coming up with our own kind of operating system, which kind of makes sure that whatever you have at the ingress, which is the first mile when you pick up, how you are able to adjust the entire network to make sure that the deliveries are all reliable. How are we able to meet the SLAs wherever there's a breach? How are we able to report this back to the customer in almost near real time? So all of that is getting enabled again on the by the virtue of a lot of applications that are running and using data to a large extent. The entire predictive modeling that we have built in using our data science team is able to predict very clearly where the breaches are going to happen, what delivery centers are going to be in stress, how are we going to enforce or keep more people to help that particular delivery center. All of that is completely managed by each and every module that is running in from end to end across the entire, I would say, platform that we have developed. We continue to iterate over. There are a lot of models that we have built in that are giving us amazing results, which helps us handle spikes. Now we know about some of the spikes, like these different sale events that happen, or certain Flipkart events that happen, Amazon events that happen, even Meesho sale days. But sometimes there could be the entire season which we are heading into, where the average volume is going to be at least double. So there's a lot of preparation that goes on behind the scenes to make sure that we are beefing up all of our different nodes within the network with the right kind of agility, so that we are able to elastically increase some of those resources in time to deliver all of the shipment that we are supposed to. So based on the experience that we have had last year, year before that, we have kind of figured out where the traffic happens most. We have used data all across to understand, which are the areas where we have struggled or where we need to reinforce, where all we are seeing preparatory work has to be done way in advance to make sure that we have the right kind of sorting speed available. We have right kind of automation sorters that we have implemented all across our hubs, which have increased the entire capacity by multifolds. So a lot of those innovations, a lot of those automations have actually helped us gear up to the kind of scale that we have seen in the couple of years.
Right. So on that note, we'll start taking questions from our audience. I've got 3 questions already with me. So the first question is, can personalization be counterproductive? That is, does it deter intuitive discovery of new products? And that question has come from Gaurav Pandey. Anybody, any of you want to sort of take that question?
Manu, I'm more than happy to take it, especially for
Please.
my show
Please.
perspective. I think answer is absolutely yes. It can be counterproductive. I know anything you do more is always bad. That's the huge belief behind it. So, I mean, if I take all the 3 questions together, I mean, how do you avoid personalization burnout and personalization is too much personalization, the counterproductive aspect? It's all about showing the customer with the right content, depending on the right context at the right time. That's all it is. So for Book My Show, for example, what we spend the time is to figure out who are browsers versus the transactors. What's the purchase intent of each of these customers. What's the churn rate, once they're into the system. There's so many of this behavioral aspect we try to learn first, right? And from those data points, we can clearly figure out that what we are showing the wrong content to the customer if it is going in the wrong direction. So it's definitely, it can be counterproductive, in terms of over personalization if it is not really reflecting in the data points which you collect. So it's all about applying the right data science, AML techniques to make sure that you are knowing your customer very well and target with the right content. And if it is the right content, they will ask for more from the same direction. That's all I need to answer right now.
Right. Yeah.
I'll add something.
Please, Satinder.
Yeah, I think this is a great question actually, and let me address it from Amazon forecast technology that I talked about. We've got this feature called user personalization recipe, and there are 2 dimensions to this recipe. The first one is, let's call it the exploit part, wherein we know that if a user has looked at something, there is a higher probability of like-sized items. But on that exploit part also, we have developed capabilities that we can automatically test various recommendations, learn from how users interact with these recommended items, and boost recommendations for items that drive better engagement. The second aspect of this is the exploration part, which is basically you need to balance how much to explore, where items are with less interaction data or relevance that are recommended more frequently, but not for a specific user. So with Amazon Forecast, we give ability for users to kind of fine tune what is the right ratio between exploit and explore, and fine tune that over a period of time so that you're not dealing with a fatigue that is associated with showing only the products which are similar to what the user has looked at, and completely ignore the explore part.
Interesting. So we'll move to the next question, and that is how much personalization is too much personalization? That question has come from Ranjit Jha. So Ramnik, maybe you can take that.
Yeah, so I think 100% personalization is too much personalization, probably. Just to give you an example, people go to a lot of brands and destinations because they also act as trendsetters and as agencies which are giving you what is in vogue right now and what is it that you should follow and what is it that's something which you probably have not explored in the past, but it is something that will work well for you. So in that sense, if I take example of Lenskart, right, a lot of people come here to discover new types of eyeplaces, new use cases, etc. So there we have to make sure that there is a certain bandwidth, certain placement given to products which we are introducing in the market, which are in trend, and which we want people to try and adopt. Now, the way to do it will be initially to give that real estate to those products and see how many people buy in, and then move to more in. So initially do it inorganically, do a little bit of seeding of it, and then algorithm will self-learn and decide how much real estate it needs going forward. So that is the way to balance that out, in my opinion.
Guru, would you like to sort of comment on that? How much personalization is too much personalization?
Yeah, I think the brand applies a different lens here from which is different from the consumer's perspective. The way I see this is a lot of our digital behavior is actually what happens in the real life. If there is a customer in front of you, if you are actually become very creepy and observing every single action of your customer, and not allowing the personal space for that individual to do a small choice or decision making, and constantly interrupting, that is too much of a personalization in the real world itself. That's something which the digital means should also not do that. So as long as it doesn't step into the space that customers want to own and want to take that time to do it, definitely that should be given to the consumers. At the same time, if there are right nudges, the context, right, like Mahesh was talking about, the relevant context where customers do appreciate. A lot of times, forgetful husbands wants that nudge so that they actually go and meet their forgiving wives for the anniversary gifts that they want to carry over. So that's very important, for any brand to also do.
Absolutely. So we'll take the last question from the audience, and this is how do you avoid personalization burnout for the customers? And that's come from Ravi Shankar. Satinder, would you take the lead on that?
Sure. I briefly talked about it. I think the burnout is finding the right ratio for the explore part more than the exploit part. And I think there is another dimension that I would like to add, which is uh, that there's classic algorithms that are related to behavior based. Uh, I think there is a higher risk of you recommending something that the user doesn't really want and making the same set of recommendations. So the quality of data sources and also looking at adding some external data sources which I think you may not be capturing right now can be another thing that we've seen worked very well with customers. An example, it could be a weather data or GDP data. I think those are the kind of things that change users' buying behaviors, and having external feed of the data is also going to be fairly important.
Right. So I think since we're short on time, we'll start taking closing comments from our panelists now. So we'll start with Ramnik and move to the others. Gentlemen, what does the future of e-commerce look like now, and how critical will platform innovation be in the coming years, and some challenges that you foresee? Ramnik?
Yeah, I think customers will continue to, the rate at which they expect the change will continue to go faster. So that is something that we will have to now account for in our releases and in our cadence of product improvement. As far as AI ML goes, right now we are at a stage where we are still talking about a lot of pre-sales use cases on how to recommend the right products and how to make it clutter-free buying experience for the customer so that they are able to see the right products. Uh, what what the next iteration of this would look like and where we are heading now is also going to be post-sales aspect, where a lot of decisions which are right now being taken by support personnel, as an example, will also move to a algorithmic decision, wherein we'll be able to aggregate a lot of those past decisions and automate a lot of those things. So I think it will impact in a huge fashion a lot of the post-sales experience of the consumers also going forward.
Right. Guru, your closing thoughts on where the future of e-commerce is, and yeah.
So e-commerce has become a hygiene factor now. That's the reason why so many brands have come online, right, in the last 2 years. So I would think in the near future, which is in the shorter term, social commerce is going to pick up in a big way, where quite, and you can see that happening even today, because as that's got to do with the way human psychology also works, right? The way we'll do commerce with so many people's inputs and feedbacks, etc., plays a very big role. And down the line, I would say a lot of immersive experiences. Like today, we are seeing the advent of technologies like the Meta, or even the blockchain and NFTs and so on, right? So that is going to play a role in the commerce, is what I would think, especially for a category like us, where it's a touch and feel and it's a wearable product. So fashion definitely will have a big impact through this technology of Meta, and we are looking forward to that also in the long term.
Right. Mahesh, your parting thoughts?
Absolutely. I think, definitely the e-com has become our integral part of life itself, right? So that means like now it is all about how do we take that experience to the near real time or near real experience of how do you feel like it in person. For example, for Book My Show, just as an example of closing thought, it's like how do you provide an the real experience of a theater right when you're actually trying to book it from a home using AR, right? So it's all about like how the various different technology tools and stacks can be used to provide the best experience for the customer when they are actually shopping from home. That's the future. It's all about keep innovating so that you're not falling behind.
Amit, your views, what does the future of e-commerce look, and especially from a logistics point of view? And also, I think you alluded to ONDC earlier, so what impact that can possibly have?
Yeah, I think the entire D2C wave is going to continue to increase. The social commerce that we talked about is definitely gaining a lot of momentum. All of that, what it does is it essentially opens up the entire playing field for newer players to come in, innovate, make sure that they are getting an opportunity to compete with the bigger players at the same level. ONDC kind of takes it even to the further level, right? And if that whole thing kind of comes to the closure very quickly, I think more and more people will start to be part of that entire journey, and it's going to democratize the entire value chain in a very big fashion, right? So that entire wave of direct to consumer is going to go to a very different, I would say, scale in the coming years, and that's what the entire logistics players are gearing up for. So what we are looking at is the way we were doing pickup, the way we were doing some of these entire address validation verifications, figuring out which ones are fraud, which ones are not, how predictable our entire flows are. All of that is going to take a very different shift, largely because the locations are changing. Now we are not picking up from a warehouse, we are not picking up from a doorstep, right? How these things change, how the seller behavior changes, how the size of the packages change, a lot of that impacts the way we do business. But yes, we're getting ready to see this continuous momentum in that space, and then a lot of technology is going to be at the forecenter of making a big impact in this area.
Right. Satinder, your closing comments?
Look, I'll divide it into two parts. The first one is machine learning. Going back to what Ramneek mentioned, I think there will be an increased needs for, while we've discussed personalization and machine learning, there would be needs of machine learning in supply chain optimization, forecasting, fulfillment, warehouse automation. And machine learning is going to play a very, very important role. That's one. The second one is, I think Guru talked about it, augmented reality, virtual reality, transforming into metaverse. I think that's going to be an interesting one. The third one that I'll say in continuation to this whole metaverse and Web3 is this whole NFT space. We are already seeing luxury brands are coming to NFT space. The amalgamation of high fashion, blockchain has already started to create an early sign of revolution in the fashion industry. And so the set includes physical assets, retail clothing, and other accessories as well. And that will possibly metaphor into authentication and supply chain management, and even to ensure that the products that customers are buying are authentic. So those are the trends that I'll definitely watch out for.
Right. I think on that note, we are well within our time now to close our session today. But it's been a fabulous discussion. Thank you, gentlemen, for taking time out to be with us. Clearly, the e-commerce sector is sort of ripe for disruption now, and all of you have some big sort of roles to play in that. So, on that note, thank you once again for joining us, and to our audience who've joined us, continue to stay safe. And thank you. Goodbye.
Forbes India presents AWS The Mavericks in association with IBEF Ventures.